Hey everybody! Thanks a lot, guys, for having us on. I see a whole ton of people actually listening to this space, so that's exciting. Little background on us: we started Rome Blockchain Labs a while ago. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about what Rome Blockchain Labs is all about today. But we build products for multiple networks, especially the Avalanche network. The focus of the products, of course, is to bring DeFi, make DeFi more accessible to users and to help bridge the gap, I think, between what can be a very big chasm between what retail users are used to and what DeFi is all about. So our primary vision and focus is to create accessible, user experience focused products to make DeFi more accessible.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro there. And then we have Luigi from the Avalabs team, our director of DeFi. Luigi, you want to give a little bit of intro on yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I am what they call me, the director of DeFi. That's the role. Been focused on building out the DeFi ecosystem, working on Avalanche Rush, working with great teams such as BENQI and JD himself, as well as many others. I'm looking forward to continuing to run through this Avalanche Rush program, as well as other initiatives that we have that we're working on. So happy to be here and discuss all that today.
Awesome. Thanks, Luigi, for jumping on with us. So yeah, we're really excited to have you on, and wanted to kind of get to know a little bit more about Rome Blockchain Labs as kind of the parent organization that you're working with, and talk a little bit about how that kind of got started, and then we'll jump into two of the projects that you're building that's really important to us, BENQI and Rome Terminal. So why don't you, JD, if you could give us a little background on what Rome Blockchain Labs is and kind of how you got started, and then what your mission is as a whole, building kind of a variety and portfolio of projects.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. So Rome Blockchain Labs, when we first started, the very first product that we imagined actually never came to fruition. We started to develop and realized, yeah, this wasn't going to be as efficient as we thought. And so we took a step back and said, DeFi really at the time was fragmented. There wasn't a whole lot of activity on other L1s, just Ethereum at the time. And we said, where is the biggest gap in terms of bringing real adoption, making it easy for people to participate, especially new users in the DeFi ecosystems. And so we identified a couple of ways. The first one was data, analytics, and tools, which you can see Rome Terminal and RomeNet are kind of iterations of that idea that we wanted to create a suite of tools, a suite of data and analytics that really I suppose would bridge kind of what existed at the time with what people were used to if they participated in centralized finance, as close as we possibly could. So to make your access to information as, in our opinion, as simple as it possibly could be in a fairly complex environment. And so getting information from the blockchain, even for the average team, can be quite difficult. And so we wanted to build a group of experts that have worked a lot in fintech, distributed systems, worked a lot in databasing and big data to create infrastructure and ecosystems so that users could have access to the things that most enterprise has access to. And so that kind of drives it's driven our development on one kind of core aspect of Rome Blockchain Labs. And so that's the Rome Terminal and RomeNet. And as we were going down that path, building out those products, we have some other partners in BENQI as well. We started engaging the Avalanche ecosystem. I came from TradFi myself for years as a partner with a hedge fund and structured products. And Avalanche always was, we were early investors in Avalanche and early participants. And I think for us, looking at Avalanche as an L1, it was clear to us that as enterprise and as financial products scaled on the blockchain, Avalanche was the best suited blockchain for that. And there's a whole host of reasons. We can come into this a little bit later, I'm sure. But we wanted to build DeFi products, again, on Avalanche that would be kind of the foundational financial product. So the first iteration of that, of course, to springboard DeFi on Avalanche was to build a lending protocol, to do it in such a way that we had adequate institutional partners. We had full support from Avalanche and a lot of the venture partners that Avalanche has as well, to get liquidity and to get usability for DeFi to a certain critical mass on Avalanche. And the support has been absolutely amazing, almost overwhelming to this point. And we're just excited to keep building financial products and DeFi suite on Avalanche.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for the great background, and like you said, BENQI really is kind of kickstarting a lot of this DeFi activity on the Avalanche blockchain. So I'd love to kind of dig in there a little bit more and kind of get your perspective on what you're seeing with this huge influx of users, how that's worked with the platform, and how the protocol's handling that much activity, and obviously you hit 2 billion in TVL, right? In the first week. So we'd love to hear more about kind of how you and your team are working with that big influx of usage, and how the platform is kind of handling all of that activity.
Yeah, I think it seems on the outside to most people like, holy crap, that's a lot of TVL in a really short period of time, and it is. We were overwhelmed with the support that we had, but I think there was a convergence of a lot of things that came together at the same time. And sometimes the Avalanche team doesn't get enough credit for the sorcery that they work in the background. But the convergence of Avalanche Rush, of Chainlink, the new AB bridge, the EVM being optimized to the point that it has been. Obviously, there's still there's work to do on all fronts, but at this point, there was a certain level of technical capability and partnerships that really just made the perfect storm for BENQI, and we happened to be, one of the benefactors of that convergence. So I wish I could take credit and say that we did all of this stuff, but a lot of the credit is actually due to the Avalanche team and the technical development that has been done, and partnerships with people like Chainlink. And so it seemed like Avalanche DeFi and BENQI came out of nowhere, but it really was kind of waiting for all the pieces to be in place and making some strategic decisions. And from our perspective, Avalanche DeFi and BENQI has exploded mainly because, obviously the Avalanche Rush kind of put things on the map and helped jumpstart the protocol. But the Avalanche Bridge, I think, is one of the biggest pieces. It's incredibly simple to use. It's very cost effective. It's fast. It's predictable. The user experience is amazing. And that, I think, is one of the major things that sets Avalanche DeFi apart from most other ecosystems at the moment. And it just made it very smooth for people to bring assets over. The second piece was, I think, venture partners. We spent a lot of time curating and working with some of the best groups in the space. We have a lot of support from our venture partners and institutional partners that we've developed that aren't on our cap table, and that really helped. Also, we worked very closely with them to bring assets over and to make sure that they had all the information they needed and had an inside look at the protocol. Security was, of course, a very important piece for us. You asked about how the protocol is holding up. Obviously, we had modeled for these types of scenarios. Didn't really expect 2 billion in the first couple of weeks, but the interest rate models and the way that the algorithms work inside of the protocol is built for this. So we weren't too concerned about that. The liquidity mining rewards have held up to a certain extent. It's still, quite profitable to interact on the protocol, and it makes sense as a foundational piece of DeFi. There's a lot of other amazing projects in the Avalanche ecosystem that have kind of secondary DeFi layers that are built now on top of BENQI, different strategies, and it really has multiplied the value of the TVL in the space. So I think, from a technical perspective, the smart contracts and the protocol itself was modeled and is built to scale much beyond this, and it's working well. And the infrastructure around, Avalanche really has been what I think has given us the opportunity to see this type of success so quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great to see that that's working so well, and you're seeing these successes early on. And like you said, it's a partnership of all these different protocols and teams coming together to build a great user experience, so people can bridge their assets over and start interacting with these different protocols and these different strategies. And really, it ties in all the different protocols and different platforms on the Avalanche blockchain, ties them all together so that people can find the best ways to use these different investment strategies. And like you said, BENQI is kind of liquidity markets and lending and borrowing protocols are foundational elements to DeFi. And I'd like to kind of dig in a little bit more around what is BENQI's kind of unique propositions and what makes it different from other lending and borrowing applications that you see out there, and what should kind of our audience and these users here know about BENQI that makes it so great and so different?
Yeah, it's a great question, my friend. I think we've always kind of had one North Star, I suppose, in mind when we were building BENQI. And so first and foremost, we wanted to create a DeFi suite of products that was accessible to the average user. So this is kind of the ethos across the board for Rome Blockchain Labs also is, like I said earlier, we want to make sure that people coming into the space, the average, there's going to be a paradigm shift, I believe, in society. It's begun already, but there's going to be a large paradigm shift where blockchain and decentralized finance is accessible and is something that people generally, globally, begin to use in their day-to-day lives. And so for us, we want to create a DeFi ecosystem, a DeFi suite of products that is accessible to average users. And so, of course, you need a blockchain like Avalanche, where there's high transaction speed, where you have near instant finality or very quick finality, where you have very low fees, where there's ease of use in between different blockchains right now, between Ethereum and Avalanche, but of course that will expand. And kind of to take it a step further, we believe in a future where there is going to be a certain level of regulation of DeFi. And Avalanche provides a unique opportunity in the subnet infrastructure where we can do regulatory compliance in a way that you can't anywhere else. So one of our big focuses in BENQI is to work hand in hand with regulators both in North America and globally to have a seat at the table, to be working on the regulatory regimes as they're being implemented. We don't want to wake up one day and have a regulatory infrastructure that all of a sudden makes everything we're doing incompatible. So that's a big piece, is to be able to build our DeFi platform onto a regulatory compliant subnet and to be able to engage with regulators globally, so that not only is ease of use there for larger adoption in the retail space, but we can also do it in a compliant way. And so that's one of the biggest, I think, focuses of the protocol. We wanted to first just be that foundational piece. DeFi has to start somewhere, and Avalanche DeFi needed a lending protocol to begin. And so that was our first step. And you'll see as we release more information on our short, medium, and long-term roadmap for BENQI here in the next little bit, I think you'll see there's quite a few things we're doing to add to that initial value prop, with the end goal, of course, in being a DeFi suite geared towards average users, people of all backgrounds, all nationalities, that can participate in DeFi in a compliant way as that paradigm shifts.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the next phase of DeFi really is about the ease of use and creating opportunities for new users to come in and easily access all these different ways that they could build investment strategies and use all these different protocols. And really, that's kind of the next hurdle that we're all trying to overcome, is to create a easier user experience. And these tools, I think, are really going to help out the tools that you and your team are building. And I'd like to bring Luigi in too on this too, just to kind of talk about how BENQI kind of fits into the Avalanche Rush program, and kind of the opportunity that you guys built together on why going out with BENQI first and launching these incentives right away, and kind of introducing this large audience to the BENQI protocol, and kind of how you built that relationship to kind of kick things off with BENQI going live?
Yeah, I mean, JD and I have, in particular, have had a lot of phone calls, a lot of late ones, early ones, a lot of conversation throughout the whole process. You know, from the get go, and this goes back a while ago when we first met JD, and that predates me joining Avalabs, but we've always felt very confident in JD and the team there. And, we wanted to, and the Avalanche Foundation wanted to express that. And I think we did by providing BENQI the opportunity to be the first recipient of Avalanche Rush incentives, also be the first lending platform on a blockchain that was starving for it. So, I think what you saw was not only, the reception from users for a great user experience and a team that was responsive and doing a great job in a very chaotic situation in terms of the first lending platform launching, but also what you saw was just how much this was needed as a Lego piece in the ecosystem, and to have it delivered by a team that did such a great job with it, and also being timely and working with the Avalanche team on all the infrastructure pieces that were needed. And I think JD put it really well. Part of the reason this was so successful is because the pieces were put in place, and you don't see that a lot in crypto. Some things are rushed, some things are put ahead of other things, and because of that, launches don't typically go as well as they should. But here, because of the bridge, because Chainlink was finally on mainnet, because the lending platform was finally in place, and we had dexes that were in a position to be able to capitalize, and we had auto compounders and all the other pieces set up. I think because of that, the success was what it was. And I think JD would agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think there was that, like you said, the preparation and the planning to put all those pieces in place so that when the launch did come, everything was ready to go and ready for the attention and the user base that was going to come in. So yeah, it's a long-term relationship, a long-term investment, and building this out and launching at the right time when everything is ready to go. So it's really exciting to kind of see that process come to fruition with the launch of BENQI. I'd like to kind of, for both of you, talk about what you're excited for the future of BENQI being part of the Avalanche ecosystem, and some of the things that you kind of see coming up next where this protocol is going to be really useful, and how it leads to the growth of kind of the whole ecosystem in general.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to, I think a good question for JD, and one that's really interesting for this space that's, I think different than TradFi in particular, is, BENQI in particular is a lending platform, and there are others that exist on other blockchains, right? And, from my perspective, the difference between these all various applications are the teams. And teams determine, and the governance of the protocols determine where they will go into the future. And so, I'd love to hear from JD's perspective. BENQI as a lending platform, has just started, just literally getting its feet wet, even though as successful as it was this early. But, how does that team and that vision differ from, maybe some of the other existing ones that are out there, even on other chains?
Luigi coming in with the big question. Attaboy. No, I think in any space, in any business, whether it's TradFi or DeFi, there is no one platform wins all. There's no world where we're going to have multiple trillions of dollars worth of DeFi activity, and there's going to be one winner and the rest are losers. What I think you're going to see is, as platforms evolve, as lending protocols evolve, you'll start to see a little bit of a divergence, I think, in areas of focus. But at the same time, you need proper market forces. You need multiple lending platforms. You need multiple DeFi product suites to keep the market efficient. It drives innovation. It drives transparency, even in a world that is primarily transparent due to the nature of blockchain, and it drives community involvement. And I think there's certain incumbents from ETH that were super excited are coming to Avalanche. I think there's no there's no environment where the larger participants from Ethereum coming to Avalanche is a net loss for anyone, including BENQI. And I think it forces all of us to spend more time with our communities and make sure we understand what it is that the communities want, focus on innovation, focus on differentiation as time goes on. Of course, it's still very new. Lending, decentralized lending is a very new concept still. It's only been around really at any scale for a year and a half, 2 years. And we're still figuring out security, and we're still figuring out interest rate models and collateralization models. So I think there's a lot of innovation that you'll see in that regard. With competition comes innovation, and I think that's very exciting. We're excited about that. I think BENQI as a platform will differentiate in a lot of ways, but most importantly, I think in the short term for people listening, is we're a DeFi platform, not just a lending protocol. And so you'll see some. It'll make a lot of sense in a few months when you see some of the other products that will release onto the platform. But really, we want to be a DeFi suite of products that focuses heavily on TradFi integrations, but also compliance, regulatory compliance. So I think that's what our kind of product focus will be, is on offering a few DeFi primitives, especially at first, all of which have a very close relationship to each other in terms of being the foundational pieces from which structured products can be built from. And so being Avalanche focused, we're an Avalanche focused protocol. There's a lot of reasons for that. We're working on some fairly substantive partnerships with large protocols, both in Avalanche and or coming to Avalanche, I think, to build some very unique structured products over the next few quarters. If you look at what will bring in institutional adoption, which has been a big focus of Avalanche and the Avalanche ecosystem in general, is that complexity that traditional finance is used to, being able to come in and actually build significant structured products on top of the primitives. So we intend to be the primitives where a lot of other derivatives platforms and other protocols can come in and build on top of us, and offer products that TradFi is used to, and they can come and participate in a meaningful way, which we think will explode the activity inside of Avalanche.
Well said, JD. Well said. I teed you up there.
Got to team up with the right questions so that you can get into it.
Yeah, exactly. Love it, man.
I mean, Luigi, if you have any more, home run questions that you want to give JD, go for it.
I don't know. I think I'm out of softballs here, but no, I think what JD was alluding to is completely right. A lot of times we forget in general that DeFi is like not very old. Last summer around this time is when Sushi and Uni were having their moment, and it just goes to show how fast things move in this space. And it also shows how impossible it is to say now what will exist in a year from today. And so that's why I always focus on teams, and I think that's why all these protocols, even though they look and can feel similar at certain times, will look very different in the future. And I think the vision is what you're buying into from that perspective. But another question for JD in particular is, in terms of liquidity mining incentives and those being a way to bootstrap launches, how effective do you think those actually are versus launching a protocol natively without any incentives and being able to just try to build a community from the onset? And that's something unique to, I think, crypto versus TradFi, and if that'll be something that can still be used when institutional players come in as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a loaded one in a lot of ways. But if you look at the liquidity mining incentives, I think it's a very unnatural way that competition is being played out right now in the space. We're the benefactor of it, of course, as both users and developers of protocols. Liquidity mining really helps. It helps you build momentum, and it helps get people excited, and it gives people a financial incentive to want to learn about your protocol. And I think it's obvious that the liquidity mining incentives were a huge piece of both our liquidity mining and the liquidity mining provided by Avalanche Rush was a big piece. I mean, it gave people a strong enough financial incentive to try out the bridge, to come over to the ecosystem, to wrap their tokens, to come onto BENQI and to participate. I mean, we have 10,000 wallets on the platform, 10,000 users, which is pretty incredible for the first couple of weeks. I don't think we would have seen that had we not had aggressive liquidity mining, both from our platform and from Avalanche Rush. Having said that, that will not continue forever. So we'll probably see this L1 race or this big L1 competition that's kind of going on. I mean, we saw other networks announcing liquidity mining initiatives also. I think we'll see that for a little while just to get everybody excited to try out different layer ones, et cetera, and have that incentive to want to move their assets over. In the future, I think we'll see bridging between networks and interoperability will be orders of magnitude more simple than it is now. So liquidity mining is also the compensation to a certain extent to go through the crap to get from one place to another, or at least to try it out with some uncertainty. Having said that, I think even when you strip away all of the liquidity mining, you look at, to look at some of our counterparts on Ethereum, that there's a lot of time on Ethereum where Aave and Compound have had natural rates without excessive liquidity mining. There's a lot of locked value looking for those types of opportunities. I mean, lending and borrowing is a massive financial primitive. Being able to unlock liquidity from some of your assets without actually having to liquidate them has a lot of advantages, especially in portfolio management. I mean, from a tax perspective and hedging and all of these other financial activities. So I think being able to offer even the pure rates, even just the function of lending and borrowing is very, very important as people, as the space matures and people plan to manage portfolios in a more structured way, I guess. And so what it really offers, even from an institutional perspective, is even our pure rates, the borrow and lend rates, are substantially better than they would be in a traditional financial environment. So I think even without liquidity mining, once that season of liquidity mining competition amongst the layer ones ends, I think we'll see that then it comes down to how can you model and optimize your interest rate environments? How can you model and optimize your collateralization rates? That's one of the big pieces that we partnered with Gauntlet right from day one, is to work very diligently on how our modeling affects the usability, the solvency, the risk profile of the protocol, and how can we optimize that over time. And I think that's where you'll see a lot of lending protocols focus their attention once the liquidity mining is over, is how can we make the protocols more efficient for the users? How can we make the interest rate models the most efficient possible? And how can we add different products to the suite to give users what they ultimately need to manage their portfolios while still being solvent and still being risk managed? And I think that's a big piece of the pie, is having data science, having risk mitigation, and of course security as kind of guiding principle.
Nice. And I have one more question, switching gears a little bit before we can get into Rome, which I know everybody's gonna be excited to hear about as well. But from my perspective, Avalanche being a newer blockchain, not even a year old, and you in particular having a front seat at developing on that chain, and really being supportive of everything of all the efforts from the Avalanche team. I'm kind of curious from your perspective. You're working with a lot of developers. You work with us. I guess my question to you is, what have you learned from the developers that you're working with on your team and other teams about developing specifically on Avalanche? What they like, what they don't like, and along those lines, how do we attract a larger developer community here and get them to understand that this is exciting technology to work with?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, we've learned a lot, of course. The EVM has been a bit of an advantage for a lot of early development because it's something that most developers are familiar with if they've built on Ethereum or even BSC for that matter. But so that has helped. Being Solidity native, being able to build for the EVM does help. It makes it somewhat familiar for our Solidity devs and engineers. But I think what has made Avalanche so interesting, at least from a development perspective, is just the focus that we see in the background on optimizing a lot of the technologies. So although an EVM is an EVM is an EVM, there's a lot of other mechanics that are happening with the way that the consensus mechanism works and the way that that Avalanche is building out the subnet infrastructure and what that will actually mean. But for us as developers in the ecosystem, we have a very clear and open line of communication with pretty much everybody at Avalabs. I think sometimes even yourself, Luigi, you'd like to turn off that communication stream because we take advantage. We take advantage of it. But I think it's like anything. The opportunity is there if you're willing to grab it by the horns and take advantage. And I think we've, at least from my perspective, we have a wonderful relationship with all of the core developers at Avalanche and the core leadership team, and then of course you guys in DeFi. And that has been a huge advantage to us. We have insight, we have support. Our developers know where to get the answers that they need. Our developers have worked hand in hand solving problems with the Avalabs team that we see as we're developing our protocol. And I think it's been that collaborative environment, that open line of communication that makes us want to continue to develop in this ecosystem. There's a lot of work still to be done. But what I can say is, although from the outside looking in, it seems like things take sometimes longer than we hope, or it seems like things aren't being done the way that a user would expect in terms of speed. What I can say from the inside is that the amount of planning and intentionality behind how things are being rolled out right now is mind-blowing. Everything is being done absolutely on purpose from the rollout of the technical pieces of Avalanche. And as a developer, we have a lot of insight into that, but it's pretty exciting to see what's coming in the next few months, I think, for Avalanche and people participating in the ecosystem.
And in terms of attracting more developers and things that we can do, and as somebody who's hired a lot of them and kind of been working with them throughout this process, is there anything in particular that you think needs to be done or will continue to happen into the future?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't want you to hire any developers because I'd prefer to hire them myself. So any good ones, I'll take my way. But joking aside, I think that documentation, of course, is important. Avalanche has a lot of fantastic technical documentation. If you actually dig in on the development Discord and interact with the Avalanche developers, you can get answers to damn near everything. I think, Luigi, honestly, just keep doing what you're doing, and just keep being transparent. Keep that line of communication open. I think that's a huge contrast that we've found between working with Avalabs and the Avalabs development team relative to some other ecosystems. Is that that communication has saved us days, weeks, months of headache. Is just having the capability to interface on challenges that need interfacing. But that open line of communication has been a huge asset, and I think the more we talk about that, and the more developers are creating novel and nascent technologies, realize that they have this support system of other experts. The support we've received has been phenomenal, whether it's a problem on our protocol or something we don't understand with the way that Avalanche works. That support is invaluable. And I think just doubling down on people understanding that exists is probably the biggest asset from our perspective that you guys offer. Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's really important to all of us here to make, like you said, to make DeFi easier, not only for users, but also for builders and developers to solve those problems and to find building solutions. And like Luigi said, it's all about kind of the team that you have that's able to do things in an intentional way and work together to solve those issues and be available to provide that service. So that's something definitely that the Avalanche team prides themselves on, is having that kind of access and the teamwork there. And so one of the things too, and to switch gears a little bit here, is I think there's also this huge opportunity for users to kind of take a step back and track and manage all the things that are happening. Like you said, the DeFi space is growing faster than anything else right now, and it's good that you guys are building kind of a platform that allows not only the ease of access, but information and being able to organize that information across different chains that you're using and different protocols that you're using. So would love to hear a little bit more about Rome Terminal and the platform you're building there.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it, of course. Just one more final thought on that developer, attracting
totally.
developers. I think one thing that has been very obvious to us and is, I think, critical for the success of any network is collaboration between different platforms, the network effect of certain ecosystems, and how valuable that is to connect and work with other teams and other protocols. I mean, that's probably one of our biggest value adds as time goes on, and you'll see, is the integrations and the collaborations with other platforms. And Avalabs has been instrumental in that. I mean, it's, as a new development team coming into Avalanche, sometimes it's a big open space. You don't know the other projects. You don't know where you can find support and collaboration. And I think, between all of our relationships at Avalabs, we pretty much have introductions almost on a day-to-day basis to different projects that want to talk to us, or that Luigi thinks, hey, you might not know about these guys, but you should talk to them. I can see some opportunities to collaborate. And that has been also a huge catalyst, I think, for us, and it will be for new developers coming in the space. So, focusing on collaboration and relationships inside of the ecosystem is also a huge opportunity. And Avalabs, more so than any other team we've worked with, has been a huge steward of that. And I think we'll see in the coming months the growth of Avalanche DeFi will be very much due to that type of collaboration throughout the ecosystem. And I think, for a platform like us to differentiate is really how do we build deep and meaningful collaborations with other participants in the space. Just the last thought on that piece. What was the question about? What was the question about? About Rome?
No, and thank you for adding that in there too, because like you said, I think the community and the partnerships are really important. So yeah, I think that's a great piece to add. Now, just kind of switching gears to Rome a little bit. Just wanted to kind of have the listeners hear a little bit more about kind of the terminal and the platform you're building that allows them to have all this information in one place and track all these things across all these different platforms and chains, and what that's going to look like and what that's going to do to help this ecosystem grow.
Yeah, we're really excited about Rome Terminal. To be able to build Rome Terminal, we had this vision quite some time ago. We've been working on this product for a long time, and I think the consumer-facing piece of Rome Terminal is amazing, and I think quite disruptive. But in order to build Rome Terminal, we had to build a data infrastructure that I didn't thoroughly understand the scale at the time. And so really the goal with Rome Terminal was to, the more that as a user you use DeFi, and now with a kind of a multi-chain DeFi environment, one of the challenges is how do you possibly understand and manage and plan out your DeFi activities on multiple networks, and you have tokens from here and there and everywhere on different exchanges. How do you understand where the opportunities lie? How do you manage your portfolio across multiple networks? And how can you do that in a real-time way? And so we wanted to create a terminal, Rome Terminal, where you can, the initial iteration, although it's ready for 5 networks, initial iteration will be the beta on Avalanche, just to get get people onto the platform and get some quick iterative feedback. It's in a closed alpha right now, so we have a lot of trusted friends and partners that are using it, giving us feedback to get any little annoying bugs dealt with before we release. But we'll release the Avalanche version probably within a few weeks, and it really is powerful. But the idea is to create an opportunity for users to have access to data across multiple networks for free. There's no tokens, there's no monthly cost. Just a place where you can manage your DeFi activities, not just trading, but also DeFi. You'll see on the platform when it launches, BENQI will be in there, Coup will be in there, Pangolin in terms of the exchange itself, not just data from the exchange. We'll have the Avalanche AB bridge and a few other potential surprises by the time we launch. But the idea is, as new people come into the space, where's the bridge from, complete ignorance to DeFi? You come into DeFi, and then what? It's this broad, disjointed, multi-chain environment with different wallets everywhere and different interfaces that are confusing. And who do you trust? Who do you not trust? Is it secure? Is it not secure? Anonymous team, good anonymous team, or transparent team. There's so many things to manage that to a new user, it's almost overwhelming. And as I walk people I know in my personal network through DeFi, it's very apparent that that's a huge, huge point of friction in terms of bringing this new paradigm to reality. And so Rome Terminal was intended to kind of create consistency across how the different apps will look, how they will function. You can have a whole bunch of apps on multiple networks, Ethereum, eventually Solana, BSC, Avalanche, of course, and multiple other networks. You can have them all open at the same time, real-time data. You can interact with your DeFi products right there on the same terminal. You can save your layouts; they're customizable, and you can have the same experience on your mobile device as well. And so we wanted to make kind of the one-stop shop. To get on Rome Terminal, there's going to be a certain amount of due diligence that has to happen. Of course, we can't be the arbiters of good and bad ever, but there's a certain amount of due diligence, KYC, contract audits, quite a few different things that will be required for an application to be on Rome Terminal, and it's incredibly exciting. It's somewhat akin, and I know this is a bit cliche, but it's somewhat akin to what the Bloomberg terminal did for institutional trading, where there's a whole bunch of different data feeds that you could have. There's a whole bunch of different trading interfaces that you could have, and a whole bunch of different exchanges and networks that you could participate from an institutional trading perspective, all in one place. News, position management, all of those different things. That will be very similar on Rome Terminal, but for DeFi.
Yeah, I always think about something like this as something you don't necessarily know you need until you start using it. And then once you really have all that information in one place, like you said, it's going to help bring in lots of new users that are just entering the space and they don't know where all these things live. And, like you said, they're kind of doing activities across all these different chains and different protocols. And really to have all that feed in one place is going to be really, really helpful. And so I think it's going to be a great product, and I'm sure everyone's excited to kind of see it live when it comes out and see the interface and the user experience there.
It's pretty cool. We have a few UX people working on it full time, and I think the iterative stage when we first release the beta will be critical. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to diffuse a whole bunch of data and information into one place, into a usable interface. So if you've ever used, for example, Photoshop or the Adobe products, the first time you open Photoshop, you look at all those buttons, you look at 10 million different options, and you go, holy crap, I have no idea how to use this thing. So we're trying to take something similarly as complex with millions, well, maybe not millions, but thousands of different functions, thousands of different data points, and putting it into a terminal where you have access to that information, but it's not all in your face all the time. And so there'll be a lot of feedback. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of testing being done, a lot of analysis being done to make sure that users have what they need at their fingertips all the time for all of these different platforms. And anytime that we build in a third-party application, that's done in conjunction with the third party. So essentially we're building a new UI for that application. So for example, Pangolin, we're not, at first we'll have a few iframes just to round out the offering, but Pangolin, for example, is going to be a natively built application inside of Rome Terminal. So essentially we're building with the Pangolin team a completely new UI that adheres to the user experience of Rome Terminal, but still functions in a way that you can use Pangolin right there in Rome Terminal. And so I think as we roll out more and more applications, it'll be apparent just how much information is available, but the user experience is going to be the ongoing focus. Education is also going to be a big piece. We expect that once this scales up, we most likely will be one of the first entry points into DeFi for a lot of users. So another kind of short, medium-term focus of Rome Terminal is just education. Walking people through how to use the terminal, how to get the information that you need, what information is relevant, how to use different wallets, how to connect to different networks, and what all of these things mean, I think is going to be a critical piece in aiding retail adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a very critical piece to aid that understanding of all these different platforms and protocols. And I'm sure it's going to be an ever evolving thing as new data feeds get added in and new, testing is done for the user experience. So this is definitely going to be a critical piece for the Avalanche ecosystem as you attract these new retail traders and users and developers and everybody that comes along with it. So I think it's going to be a really exciting thing to see come to life.
I got one question. I got one question because I know, for myself in particular, I'm a visual type of person, and I can kind of, understand having used Bloomberg a lot in the past. So what's kind of, being thought of here. But JD, in terms of like other applications in DeFi that allow you to view your assets and things like that, like a Zapper or things like that, what functionality like will Rome provide that maybe those don't, or maybe that it might do better? Or like how will it differentiate itself from other type of platforms like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the goal of Rome Terminal, and this is probably can't be overstated, but there is no way that any one particular platform can be at the cutting edge of all technologies all the time forever. So there's no way that any one data and analytics platform will have the best of everything all the time. So our view is, let's build the platform and then let's be impartial. So if Zapper wants to come to Rome Terminal, they're welcome to be integrated in the Rome Terminal. And so users can say, hey, I like Zapper, or someone else might say, hey, I like the FTX portfolio management. Rome Terminal is impartial. We could have multiple options for portfolio management inside of Rome Terminal. So you as a user, Luigi, could come to Rome Terminal and say, hey, I like Zapper. I like what they do with portfolio management and asset positions. And that could be in Rome Terminal. We want to partner with the apps that are the best in their particular niche, and then offer the opportunity to be in one place where all the users hopefully will congregate. And so it becomes a bit of it becomes a platform play. It really is a platform. We don't intend to develop everything ourselves. I think that would be naive. And probably impossible to develop every application in every direction better than anybody else. We will, however, add, given the availability of data and just the sheer quality of the data that we have on every network, we will develop our own native applications, but that's not really the goal. The goal is not to be the only applications inside of Rome Terminal developed by Rome Blockchain Labs. Ideally, we want the majority of the widgets to be offered by other products. And as new products coming into the space, one of the best ways to get your product in front of people that could use it would be, where are the users spending time. And if the users are spending time on Rome Terminal as a new platform coming into the space, they may want to work with Rome Terminal to have inclusion. And there's going to be, of course, requirements and so on for those applications to be included, especially when they're new. But similar to what a listing on a centralized exchange used to mean is, if your protocol had their token listed on a large exchange, that signified a certain amount of legitimacy. Again, we're not going to be the arbiter of good and bad, right and wrong, but there will be an opportunity to include really as many versions of a similar type of technology as the users are using. So 4 or 5 different portfolio management applications, we're impartial. We would have all of them in there, and the users can determine which one they want to use.
And so when Rome Terminal?
When Rome Terminal. So the Avalanche version is, like I said, it's in a closed alpha right now. We're getting critical feedback and doing some iterations just based on some close partners that we have. I would suspect Rome Terminal for Avalanche will be out within the next in a beta. So there's still going to be some iframes relative to native widgets for a few things, and some limited functionality in a few other areas, just as we scale up the users. We have a fairly complex infrastructure that allows us to scale far beyond what most people would expect, but you don't know that until you have it in production. So the beta will be released most likely in September, probably in the next couple of weeks, assuming no unforeseen circumstances, and then it'll be fast and furious user feedback and iterative updates.
Okay, good to know. I'm sure everyone's kind of get excited to see it, and once the beta is out, get all that testing done, and then it'll be excited to see this go live, and I'm sure it'll be something that a lot of people will be really excited to use. So really looking forward to seeing it. And so kind of just to wrap things up here as we're coming up against time, we wanted to kind of really dive into the work that you and your team are doing, the partnership that you're building with Avalabs, all the awesome things that BENQI has accomplished so far, and also all the things that you're looking forward to with projects you have coming up. So kind of our final question that we always get to is, outside of just what you're building, or outside of DeFi on Avalanche, what are a few things that innovations or other really cool use cases you're seeing for either just blockchain technology in general or in DeFi that you see kind of on the horizon that you're really excited about or that you're really paying attention to?
Oh man, that's we could spend probably a whole hour talking about the things that I'm excited about. There's a few things in particular I think that are really interesting. I mean, from a degen participant in DeFi, which I think we all are sometimes at heart, the JPEG chaos is kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out in the end, if it's a tulip scenario or if we're going to see some really interesting scaled adoption of NFTs in their current form. I think it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of gains to be made there, but I think there's some really interesting technology that's around, that's going to be around to stay. And so I'm definitely following that. I have no interest in building anything in that space, at least for the time being, but it's definitely of interest. I think once we see, and we're watching closely, NFTs being used for some other use cases. Identity, I think, is really interesting for insurance, for KYC, and for some other types of use cases. I think that's really interesting, and also interesting to the future of BENQI and other financial primitives in DeFi, I think. So we're watching that closely. I think what I'm seeing that maybe not everybody else is seeing is just the sheer amount of institutional interest. We're talking to with BENQI, a lot of institutional partners, custody platforms, and different things. It's amazing the amount of interest and participation that's happening behind the scenes. So I think that's pretty cool. Obviously, I'm biased because institutional adoption is good for our platforms, but I think just for the space as a whole, that's very exciting. I love some of the new innovations with stable coins, personally, and some of the other hedging instruments, some of the other ways that, again, we're trying to build what exists in traditional finance in terms of portfolio management. Stable coins and hedging options are pretty important. What happens? What's the flight to safety in crypto? And, we're in this, if we dare to call it, a bull market right now, which is very interesting. But the last few times that we've exited bull market, it's been fairly violent. And I think there's a lot of teams and a lot of projects that are developing right now to create hedging opportunities, to create different types of flights to safety. Going to a US dollar equivalent might not be that safe at the moment, but there's some interesting developments going on. And at least from my perspective, I'm focused much more on portfolio management and portfolio development. So seeing some of those innovations, I think, creating opportunity for people to manage through market cycles without just holding and hoping that you don't hit zero, I think is really unique. And then lastly, having some conversations with different venture partners and different institutional partners. I think there's a lot of governmental interest, a lot of central bank interest in how to use borderless transactions. I don't think there's anybody that, that's trying to do it in a free and open way publicly yet. But I think there's a lot of interest, a lot of research happening between smaller central banks and trying to figure out how to create opportunities to have borderless transactions while still remaining, a sovereign nation and having some control over what happens from a taxation perspective and AML and all these things. And I think in the next few years, we're going to see a lot of transformative developments in that area. I could go on for hours, but that probably gives you a few things.
He can. He really can.
Yeah. We'll set up round 2 here soon, so we could just talk about all the other things that we're all excited about, not even our own projects. So we could just have a little just roundtable discussion about it.
The biggest risk that you have is giving me a microphone, because
yes.
I can go on all day.
No risk at all. That's totally fine. You know what? It's been really great conversation, and I know for myself, I've learned a lot. I hope everybody here listening has learned a lot about the projects you're building, and we'd love to have you on the mic at any time and talk about not only the stuff that you've already launched, but the stuff you have coming up, and how we can build this ecosystem together. And I really really love how kind of like your kind of centering value is that you want to make DeFi more accessible for everyone. And that's something that we're really about and resonating with too. So, as we kind of wrap up here, just as people want to find out more about your different projects and kind of follow along, what's the best place for them to follow you on social or different websites that they should be kind of tracking these projects?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to romeblockchain.com, which has a few of our different products in the suite listed on there. If you go to, obviously, the BENQI Telegram channels, we're happy. We're all in there. All the partners, as well as our community managers, are in there to answer questions. Anyone that is listening that's a developer and is thinking about unique collaborations or integrations, please don't be shy. Like I said before, that's the power of DeFi right now is the collaborative environment. And some of the things that we do together are much greater than the things we do alone. So please don't hesitate to reach out via Telegram, via LinkedIn, via Luigi. Maybe bug him first, and then he can send you our way if you don't have another way to get to us.
Sounds scalable.
Right under the bus, my man.
Very, very, very scalable.
Sounds scalable.
All joking aside, though, guys, we love to connect with people, other developers, other teams, and also users. So please don't be shy. Come to any of our channels. I believe you can contact us on romeblockchain.com, and looking forward to hearing from people.
Amazing. Yes. So we're all following along, looking forward to these upcoming launches and evolutions of whatever Rome blockchain is building and DeFi in the Avalanche ecosystem. So thanks for joining us, JD. Really great to talk to you. Luigi, thanks for jumping on again. Thanks everybody else for joining and listening in and staying with us the whole time. We're going to be doing this a lot more often and bringing in lots of great partners and builders in this space to talk about what we're all building here together. So thanks for joining, everybody, and we'll be back soon. So stay with us on the Avalanche Twitter channel, and we'll be back soon with more Q&As with our partners. But thanks, Luigi, and thanks, JD, for joining us.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, JD. Thanks, Kyle.
All right. See you later, everyone.